as search and rescue teams continue to hunt for bodies trapped underneath the mud and rubble of their homes in the Libyan coastal city of Derna. Observers say the warlord Khalifa Haftar and his sons are using the disaster response as a way to exert control rather than ensure vital humanitarian relief reaches civilians. At least 11,300 people have died and more than 10,000 are missing, according to the Libyan Red Crescent, after two dams burst during a powerful storm last week. The resulting floods have completely destroyed almost 900 buildings in Derna, according to the country's national unity government, based in the northwestern city of Tripoli. More than 200 buildings were partly damaged, and almost 400 others were completely submerged in mud. It added, meaning that a quarter of all buildings in Derna had been affected by the flooding. Desperate rescue efforts continued in an attempt to find any remaining survivors as bodies continue to wash up on the shoreline. First responders on the ground often worked while surrounded by militants from the Libyan National Army, a sprawling military coalition loyal to Haftar, amid what observers described as efforts to keep an iron grip over vital assistance arriving in the crisis-stricken city. Public access to the center of Derna, worst affected by the flooding, has been shut off, and the city has been officially declared a disaster zone. Derna's citizens are struggling to survive without access to electricity, safe drinking water, or food. Late last week, the head of Libya's parliament based in the east, Osama Hamad, said the authorities were considering sealing off the entire city, which once housed 100,000 people, fearing the spread of waterborne diseases. Essentially, there is a military presence that is creating bottlenecks rather than being conducive to the provision of relief, said Emideddin Badi, an analyst on Libya with the Atlantic Council. The main thrust of relief efforts was not facilitated by the military leadership, which had a vested interest in appearing in control while skirting responsibility and victim blaming, but instead by volunteers, medical teams, Red Crescent, Boy Scouts, and foreign search and rescue teams. Haftar, who has spearheaded a military campaign to unilaterally control much of eastern Libya since 2014, toured Derna on Friday. He praised the actions of first responders as well as members of the LNAA coalition of militias overseen by the aging former CIA asset and U.S. citizen whom critics accuse of running areas under his control, akin to a military dictator. On the public relations side, they are leveraging their pre-existing propaganda channels to appear in control, while being the main interface for administering crisis relief and being the custodians of the city, said Beatty. But again, that's creating bottlenecks everywhere. Haftar's visit was a microcosm of this issue. Everything was frozen for an hour for a PR stunt. Haftar's sons, each of whom also controls their own broad networks of financial and sometimes military interests in eastern Libya, have responded to the humanitarian crisis in Derna by seeking to further exert control over the disaster response. On the same day that disaster struck Derna, Khalifa Haftar's eldest son, El Sedek, declared his interest in running for president of Libya in long-delayed elections. Observers said 32-year-old Saddam Haftar, often seen as the